Why is it so damn hard to let things go? And I'm not just talking about something recent. I'm talking about things from years ago that still affect you today. The way they show up when you least expect it. Whether that's a thought, a memory, or a reaction that catches you off guard. Maybe you've tried to ignore it or stay busy enough so that it stops bothering you, but it keeps coming back. And when something keeps coming back, most of us think that we just need to try to make sense of it and try to replay it in our head enough until it finally goes away. But it doesn't work that way. I know because I spent years holding on to things about my diagnosis that I shouldn't have for a really long time. And I'm sure you've been doing that too. So today, that's why I'm going to talk about learning how to let go. Now, I know letting go has been thrown around a lot lately in many different ways. So let me be clear about what I actually mean, because I'm not just talking about shrugging things off and moving on. I'm talking about 3 specific things that slowly take over your life after receiving a herpes diagnosis. Your emotions, what other people think, and your ego, which is that little voice inside of your head that takes someone else's reaction and instantly turns it into a story about you. So first, I'm going to break down how each one of these things takes over your way of thinking after you get the news. And then at the end of this episode, I'm going to share 3 things I put into practice that help me let go of the fear and the shame, and also help me stop living for everyone else's approval so that I could finally get my life back. Hi, I'm Kat Dupree, and I help people to navigate life with herpes. And what I'm about to share with you, I learned the hard way. But before I get into it, for those of you who don't know how I started down my herpes journey, I made a choice to be in a relationship with someone who disclosed to me from the very beginning that he had herpes. And after he shared his experience with me and the fact that his previous partners never got it, I decided to continue dating him. Now, some of you may be thinking, Kat, are you crazy? Why would you make that choice? And the reason, just like my boyfriend who doesn't have genital herpes, chooses to be with me every day, is because I cared about him and I enjoyed what we had together. Fast forward 10 years after the relationship ended and I was getting my life back together, I moved into my new place, and it was shortly after that I found out that I had herpes. And for many years after I got my diagnosis, I held onto so much crap about it and that it slowly took over my life. And what's crazy is that I didn't even realize it was happening. Now look, I want you to know that I'm not coming at you from a place where I've got it all figured out. There are times I'm still figuring it out. Coming out and sharing my story and creating these videos still makes me feel really nervous sometimes. But here's the thing. I've been exactly where you are now, and I continue to do the work every single day to prevent my diagnosis from taking over my life again. That being said, let's jump into it and start with the first one on the letting go list, because this is what hits you right away after you receive your diagnosis, and that's your emotions. Because when you first get the news, you're overwhelmed with them. Fear, anger, shame, guilt, embarrassment, you name it. Sometimes they hit you one at a time, and sometimes all at once. Now, most of us think letting go of an emotion means deciding that we're just done with it and pretending that you don't care. But that couldn't be further from the truth. So in this context, when I talk about letting go of your emotions, what I mean is letting yourself feel them, then allowing them to move through you and out. You don't want to bury them or pretend they aren't there. And you also don't want to beat yourself up for having them. You want to allow yourself to feel them and let them out, because no matter what you're feeling, it's valid. I'm sure you've heard the saying from Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung, what you resist persists. And that's exactly what's happening here. The harder you fight a feeling, the more it takes over. In fact, what Carl Jung actually said was that what you resist doesn't just persist, it grows. So the more you push away fear or shame, the bigger it gets. Not because anything new happened, but because that feeling never got a chance to run its course. This is the same thing that Dr. David Hawkins spent years studying. He even wrote a book about it called Letting Go. And what he found was pretty simple, which is that we spend so much energy trying to control our feelings, trying to avoid them, or trying to talk ourselves out of them. But a feeling doesn't just let up because you resisted it. It lets up when you finally stop fighting it and let yourself feel it without judging it and without needing it to be anything other than what it is. The moment that you do that, it starts to ease up. And I want to be clear about something. Letting go doesn't mean you'll never feel fear, embarrassment, shame, or anything else ever again, whether that's tied to your diagnosis or not, because you will. The difference is what you do with those feelings when they show up. Instead of grabbing onto the feeling and turning it into a story about who you are, you let it pass through you. You just see it for what it is, and you let it be there without making anything more of it. Because a feeling only sticks around as long as you keep giving it your attention. But the moment you stop feeding it, it starts to lose its power over you. Now, once you start getting a handle on your emotions, there's a second thing that has just as much power over you, sometimes even more. And that's what other people think. For me, this one goes way back because growing up, I was made to feel like I wasn't good enough. I was teased and bullied in school, and there were many times I felt like I didn't fit in. And when you grow up feeling that way, you learn to notice how everyone reacts to you, and then you mold yourself into what you think that they want just to be liked and to stop being picked on. So by the time I got my diagnosis, the programming was already there. The fear of being judged, the fear of being seen as less than, and the fear of people walking away. Herpes didn't create any of that. It just brought all of it right back to the surface. So basically, the beliefs I had about not being good enough were there long before I got the news, and my diagnosis just exposed them. I talked about this in a previous episode called Herpes is Only Skin Deep, and if you haven't seen it, I suggest you check it out, since it's the pre-work you do to find out what your beliefs are and where they come from, which prepares you for being able to let go. Okay, so now that you know where the fear of being judged or the need for approval may be coming from, let's talk about what letting go of it all actually looks like. I want you to think about the last time you were about to tell someone something personal. Maybe it was about your diagnosis, maybe it was something from your past, or maybe you were just opening up about how you really felt. Then your body tenses up and your mind starts racing, and before you even said a word, you're already bracing for every way it could go wrong. What if they judge me? What if this changes how they see me? Or what if they decide that I'm too much? So what do? You rehearse and go over exactly what you're going to say and how you're going to say it, like there's some perfect set of words that will get you the reaction that you want. But here's the thing. You can't control how anyone responds. Not your friends, not your family, and not the person you're dating. I mean, no one. And trying to manage someone else's reaction will drain you faster than just about anything. Because when you're always worried about what everyone else thinks, you slowly stop listening to what you think. You start handing over your worth to other people. You wait for them to tell you that you're lovable, that you're acceptable, and that you're enough. But the truth is that no amount of approval from the outside world will ever be enough, because it was never going to come from outside yourself in the first place. Trust me, I know exactly what this feels like because I spent so much time and energy trying to explain myself the right way. I figured if I just said the right things, acted the right way, and became whatever I thought people wanted. They'd accept me and they'd stick around. And you know what? That never worked. Not once. What finally changed everything for me was realizing something so simple. Their reaction is theirs and my response is mine. That's it. And the second I stopped trying so hard, things got a whole lot easier. I didn't feel like I had to convince anyone to stay, and I didn't feel like I had to explain myself into being accepted. The people who actually mattered never wanted me to be perfect. They just wanted me to be me. And the ones that couldn't handle it, well, they're not in my life anymore. So here's what I want you to take from this. If someone judges you, that's their opinion, not a fact about you. If someone walks away, that's their choice, not proof of your worth. And look, letting go doesn't mean people's opinions won't have an effect on you. And if I'm being honest, they still have an effect on me too. But it's how I choose to respond to them now that makes all the difference. I don't let someone else's opinion decide how I see myself, and I don't give it the final say. And that one change in your mindset is how you start taking your power back. Now, I want to take this one step further, because even after you stop chasing everyone's approval, there's still something inside you that takes their reactions and quietly turns them into a story about who you are. And that's your ego. Now, when I say ego, I'm not talking about arrogance or being cocky or thinking that you're better than everyone else. This is totally different. The ego I'm talking about is that little voice in your head that takes someone else's reaction and instantly makes it mean something about you. Someone doesn't text you back, your ego goes, "See, I knew it wasn't worth it." Someone ghosts you after you tell them about your diagnosis, your ego says, "Something must be wrong with me." Someone judges you, your ego turns it into, "Well, that must be true then." That's what your ego does. It takes other people's reactions and turns them into facts about who you are. And here's something most people never realize about that voice inside your head. It didn't even start with you. You picked it up from other people, from the things you were told and the messages you absorbed without even questioning them. And over time, those voices started sounding like you came up with them yourself. There's actually a name for this. It's called introjection, which is just a fancy way of saying you made other people's opinions about you into your own. But here's the good news. If that voice was never really yours to begin with, you don't have to keep believing it. And once you see that voice for what it is, you get to decide what someone else's reaction actually means, not the voice. Look, letting go of your ego doesn't mean rejection suddenly feels good, because it won't. And it doesn't mean you stop wanting to be liked. It just means someone's reaction stops being the final word on who you are. So when someone says no, it goes back to just being that, a no, not proof that something's wrong with you. It's just someone else's response. Nothing more, nothing less. And that's what letting go of your ego really comes down to. You stop letting someone else's reaction decide who you get to be. Okay, before we wrap this up, I promised to share 3 things with you that I put into practice. So here they are, quick and simple. Number 1 is for your emotions. The next time a difficult feeling comes up, don't fight it and don't try to push it away. Just notice it. Name what it is, whether that's fear, shame, anger, or guilt, and notice where you feel that in your body. Maybe it's in your chest, maybe it's in your stomach, or maybe it's in your throat. Then take a few slow breaths and let it be there without judging yourself for having it. Don't turn it into a story about who you are. Just stay with it for a moment and let it pass, because the less you feed it, the faster it goes. Number 2 is for what other people think. When you catch yourself worried about how someone's going to react, separate what's theirs from what's yours. Their feelings, their reaction, their decision, that's all theirs. Your honesty, your self-respect, and how you choose to respond, that's yours. So remind yourself, what's theirs is on them, and what's yours is on you, and that their opinion doesn't get the final say on who you are. And number 3 is for your ego. Start catching that voice inside your head when it takes someone else's reaction and turns it into a story about you. Like if someone ghosts you after you open up and your ego decides something must be wrong with you. The second you notice it, take a breath and interrupt it. Say something to yourself like, that's their choice and it doesn't mean anything about me. Because a no is just a no. And you get to decide what it means and not the voice. So, at the end of the day, this whole episode comes down to one thing. Taking your power back by letting go. Letting go of the emotions that keep you triggered, letting go of what other people think, and letting go of that voice that turns every reaction into a verdict about your worth. Because when your emotions stop driving your decisions, when other people's opinions stop defining you, and when that voice stops getting to decide who you are, everything changes. You stop handing everyone and everything else so much power over you, and instead, you take your power back. Well, that's it for today, and if you're tired of navigating your condition alone, come join us at Herpes Wellness. It's a private community where you can get support from people who actually get it, who don't judge it, and who can help you to navigate your condition so that you can start living the life that you want. So come check us out. The link is in the description. If you want support on the go, then you can download the Herpes Wellness app for free in both the App Store and in Google Play. If you're concerned about privacy, we've got you totally covered. The app icon and push notifications say H Wellness, so if someone happens to see your screen, you won't disclose your status unintentionally. Also, if you're watching on YouTube or listening on audio, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes. Also, be sure to give us a like or a hype, as this helps other people to find our podcast. And if you like what you're hearing, or if there's something specific you'd like for me to talk about on the show, let me know in the comments. I would love to hear from you. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you the next time on the Herpes Wellness Podcast. Bye for now.